something, and they go, here's our license agreement. We wouldn't do anything dodgy. You can choose not to accept it,
Yeah.
but if you don't accept, you're not going to be able to register. It's like there's no middle ground, so I can accept some and not accept some. But I think we've lost Precious as well. One, two, three, four, five, six. Yeah.
Yep,
All right.
we lost someone and we gained another.
Yes. I think we're probably GB. You might want to turn your camera off because of the latency, the network. Unless you've got a good network, so feel free to leave it on as well. All right, guys, we are on. Good evening, everyone. And whatever time you're watching this, welcome to Nerd Night. It's officially episode 8, and with the way we're going, we might actually hit episode 1,000 soon. So I hope you all be here still for that. But thank you so much, everyone, for jumping in. Hopefully, the learning on the learning platform has been quite fun. I caught up with Alex recently, and Alex was like, "Sammy, you're making me cry." So hopefully you're having fun on the platform, and hopefully you're enjoying all of the content there, and you're doing your research and putting work together. But as usual, I'm your host, Sammy Chaps, the founder and CEO of CyberLynk. CyberLink's main goal is to actually help individuals and businesses gain an edge by solving the cybersecurity skill problem globally. The skill gap, and the skill gap isn't necessarily the lack of individuals; it's the lack of skill, technical skill. So we want to solve this problem by actually implementing three key strategies. One is advanced technical training. The second one is industry expert mentorship. So that's why Nathan is here. Nathan is a seasoned, malware reverse engineer specialist. He's also a cyber defender. He knows his stuff. He does this stuff and breathes it every day and night. Myself, obviously, your one and only that you guys love very much. Uh, I like to think that I know what I'm talking about, but hopefully, you guys call me out if I don't. But the third point, or the third strategy, is job readiness and industry partnership. So we genuinely want to provide an opportunity for you to not only gain technical skill, but also gain the kind of skill that will make you indispensable from an interview and from a job as well. So things like the resume review, mock interviews, and actually preparing you and showcasing your profiles and information to employers. So those are the kind of things that we'll be doing over the next few months. So for those who have been with us for a bit more, um, thank you for still sticking around. But for those who are new, also thank you for joining. There is a lot of fun here to be had. So we'll see how we go. But I think a really good place to start is by going through a quick introduction. So Pedro, I think you're probably the one right on my left hand side. I'll pick you up and ask you to go. Sorry for throwing you under the bus. What's your
No,
name?
that's
What's your name? And tell us your name. Tell us why you're excited about cybersecurity, and then one interesting thing about you, if you don't mind.
all right. So my name is Pedro Lamelas. So my interest in cybersecurity comes more from an infrastructure perspective. Did my bachelor's around network security, and from then I pick it up on a few pen testing skills, and yeah, that's where my interest in cybersecurity comes from. Interesting thing about me, that's how I want to just get out on top of my head, but the only thing that comes to my mind is that I'm Brazilian. I suck at soccer, even though
No way.
there is this. Yeah, exactly.
Were you
Um,
kicked out of Brazil? Is that why you're in Australia, man? Did they
yeah,
disown you?
got exiled. Got exiled.
Fair enough. Cool.
That's funny.
That is funny. All right, cool. I'll go ahead. Obviously, I'll let you go next, Paul, if you don't mind. Just a quick intro so we can begin.
Yeah. Except Pedro, I think everyone knows about me, but
It's all right.
just
There's a few new people here
couple.
we don't know, so be
Okay,
kind
yeah,
enough. Yeah.
yeah. I'm Paul. I'm from a background from sales, IT sales. So what made me interest in moving into cyber is I'm passionate about. I'm more into problem solving. I like solving problems and bringing solutions in sales, especially. So that gives me more focus towards technical. I want to completely move from sales to technical. So one thing was really passionate about is cyber and more into technical where I can solve and help people. That's one thing which really I was passionate about. So that's why I'm moving to cyber. Apart from apart from that, I love motorsport. That is one of my passion, especially Formula One and MotoGP. My favorite team is Ferrari. Ferrari is my favorite team all the time.
Cool.
That's me.
That's awesome. All right, Alex, you go next, and then GP, and then Precious, if you're able to speak.
Hi, my name is Alex. I've been mentioned a couple of times today, so
That's because I like
will be one of
dishing you.
I will be one of the noisy ones, I think, sometimes, maybe a little bit annoying, but I hope to improve.
That's why we are in cyber, mate, solving issues.
Hacking biologically people as well, right? It's the next
All right,
part
don't
of
go.
cyber.
It's still too early, Alex, to go into the conspiracy theory tonight. Let's move on. Keep moving. There's a time for that threat landscape.
So yeah, what else?
Yeah, that's all you want to say. That's it.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. All right, over to you, GP. If you're still on the call.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. All right. I'm GP Kasi. I'm currently in Nigeria. Also managing director in a tech firm in Nigeria. I'm into software development and software licensing, automation, workflows, and all of that. I just have interest in cybersecurity because Sammy told me there's money there. So I'm here to learn
Do
that
not listen to
and
him,
make
everyone.
money. It's good to have you all.
Good. No, thanks. Great to have you, mate. Precious,
So
if you're
we
able to
already
unmute
told
yourself.
by Sammy.
I did not. No one. No one can claim that I told them that you're going to make a lot of money from cybersecurity. All I always tell you is that you're going to have fun. You know, that's one thing I can promise you. There's going to be a lot of fun.
Sammy, can't you technically claim that about every industry? You got to make a lot of money over time.
Well, yeah, you can, but I also don't want. I also don't want anyone to do this because they're going to make money. You know, there is all that motivators, right? Motivator is. Has anyone ever wondered, why you cannot sleep at night but still be fun? Still find it fun? That's cybersecurity. So welcome aboard. Precious, please, if you don't mind, just a quick introduction of your name and maybe some fun fact about you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Precious. I am a business developer and I picked up a career in cybersecurity because I want to upscale my skill and also gain relevance. Yeah, and I think that's it. I'm a selective extrovert. I can be
That's
extroverted or introverted. Yeah.
selective.
So I would just like to say I'm an ambivert.
Cool. That's awesome.
So that's it.
That's nice.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. Steve, I know you jumped in
I think
just there. You slipped
the
in.
proper to be introvert where there's no money. When money is involved, get extroverted, man.
That's funny. Steve, do you want to quickly give us a quick introduction just for those who are in here for the first time? We've got time ticking. Come on, mate.
Hi everyone, my name is Steven. I'm a Nigerian living in Melbourne. I have a degree in cybersecurity, rather a master degree in cybersecurity. I just completed that at Deakin and currently looking for my first entry job in cyber. And what else again? I am more of an introvert and spend time I love reading as well.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Nathan, I think you're the last person. Have I missed anyone? If I missed you, feel free to unmute and go. But Nathan, I think you're the last one. Please introduce yourself. Don't make me give you a welcome, drum roll and perfect introduction. You can do that yourself. We don't
Oh,
have a
you
lot
can
of
give
time.
me. You can give me a drum roll like you have every other time if you feel like it. But
Nah.
hi, I'm Nathan. I'm the guy who came in late eating pasta and forgot to turn my camera on because I didn't want you to see me eating and then hear all the lovely eating sounds in the microphone. And maybe that's a fun fact I can tell is that my noise cancelling headphones cancel out the sound of me eating in the microphone while it's turned on.
That's good.
Wow.
It works.
Magic.
Alex,
Such magic.
For
I
anyone
just talked
watching
about
this
everything
later,
else except for
actually,
myself.
yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Okay, so maybe I'll restart. I'm Nathan.
Hi, Nathan.
hey, mate. How you going? I don't know where to go now. I am. I guess you could call me a developer. I don't really know what you call me. I code. I reverse engineer stuff. I like malware analysis. I like mountain biking. I do cyber stuff, and I guess that's all to say. That's all, really all to say about me. I don't know.
Cool. Welcome on board, mate. Can everyone see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Cool.
I can see you.
Awesome. All right. I don't think we missed anyone, but I reckon it's time for us to get cracking. So
Yeah.
for today, we've got a few things. Again, the same. Your one and only Nathan and Semi. We'll have more mentors come on board as well. Obviously, as we continue to move from different domains to different domains, we'll get you the subject matter experts who are relevant to those domains in cybersecurity. So today, I wanted us to spend some time talking about the same security information and event management system. So you guys will hit this in Unit 2 for those who are doing the advanced cybersecurity training. For those who are doing the cybersecurity essential, you would actually hit this in one of your other domains as well that you're doing. Probably not the same concept or the same content. For the more advanced training, you'll be hitting this and actually configuring it. But for the more essential training, you'll just be getting a quick introduction of what a SIEM is. So for those who have never heard of the word SIEM, and what that actually means, you're probably scratching your head and wondering, what is this used for? Well, I put together a really nice, well, I'm giving myself accolade here. I put together a really nice diagram. If it sucks, like guys, I always love feedback. Let me know if the diagram sucks, and we can always, try to work it out. But I put together a diagram here just to illustrate what a SIEM is. So SIEM is nothing more than just a data lake. So a data repository where you can pour data, all of the different data, structured data and unstructured data that is coming out of the organization. These days, it's actually funny because we are creating more and more data. Big data, which includes voice, video, and pictures and text, is now become the norm. Gone are those days where you could take a photo and that photo is 50 kilobytes. Now, each photo that you take, each selfie, is actually about 5 megabytes. Now, would anyone here have been able to fathom that 5 years ago? Well, probably not. But today, photos are a lot more enhanced. Now you can do a lot of crazy things with them. So with all of this data, with all of the videos and everything, there needs to be a central place to store them. If not, cybersecurity measures are ineffective because as there's always this meme in cybersecurity where it says no logs, no crime. Well, that simply means if there is no evidence of the activity that has taken place, there is actually no way for us to know if indeed an organization has been hacked or if it's been compromised. So this is why SIEM is essentially important. So it provides an avenue for all of the data that is coming out of an organization's security system or non-security system, just normal IT systems. An example of that would be an EDR. So this is an endpoint detection and response system. So this is more like an antivirus, but a little bit more next generation that does more than just detecting attacks or events based on signature. And you also have things like API type logs, which is includes Azure Blob storage, S3 buckets, Graph API, anything that has to do with API is actually collected. And then there is a data aggregator. So this data aggregator is usually something like maybe WorkWave which is basically collecting all of the data, almost like an initial bucket where all of the data is collected and buffered before it gets sent to the log processing and classification system. But I'm going to break this down a little bit more, but I wanted to give everyone a bit of an introduction into what SIEM is. So now, when all of this big data and structured and unstructured data is collected in the SIEM, something amazing happens, and that something amazing is called analytics. So some SIEMs are better at doing this than others, but analytics is essentially the process of taking the logs that have come from different sources, so all of these different sources, and structuring it in a way that is usable for building detection codes and for actually detecting threat that might impact the organization. So how is this done? We'll take a simple case study. So let's say for some reason, sysmon event ID 1 triggers on your system, which is process creation on an endpoint. That event would be sent using a data aggregator. So an example of a data aggregator is something called Qradar, or it could actually be just Splunk edge collector. So it's called universal forwarder, or it could also be WinLogBit event as well. Another thing you can also use Logstash for collecting logs as well. But all of these are data collectors and aggregators. They collect the logs. Sometimes they collect the logs and send it directly to the SIEM. Other times they collect the logs, send it to a central log repository, which is now feeding logs into the SIEM. But the point here remains the same. So the point is that this is your enterprise infrastructure, which include things like Windows servers, Linux servers, cloud environment, local on-prem environment. We're talking about, people downloading files, people watching YouTube, all of these different activities that go on day by day. All of this activity is gathered, and then all of these little agents that are called, again, like I said, for Splunk, it's called a Splunk Universal Forwarder. For Sentinel, Microsoft, it's actually called, Windows WebWeb. That's if you're wanting to use that. There's another one called the SMA AMA agent. This is what Sentinel uses to collect log. And for, again, this is something you guys are learning, which is why I'm calling out the different names. And for elk, it's called Logstash. Or you can literally just use the WinLogBit from Elasticsearch. So these are the different log collectors that can pull logs out of the endpoint or the server, and then send it to the central log processing unit. So now you can see this pathway here, or this pipeline, is actually how the logs get collected and then shipped to that central log processing. So what is an example of processing? I'll give you one. So because log messages by themselves might be heavy, and by the way, for someone who hasn't heard of what a log message is, it's actually metadata of an event. So an example is someone goes and downloads malware. The computer creates a metadata of that event and then sends it just for evidence sake to say, hey, this did happen at this time. Now, this can be enabled or disabled, and this is something you guys are going to learn. And I think some people have already done this already. So if you're not new, you would have configured login. That this is part of Unit 1.1, Unit 1 in the practical CCSA course. But if you're doing the practical cybersecurity essential course, that's one. Precious did jump off. If you're doing the practical cybersecurity essential course, this is something you're going to be faced with later on. But fundamentally, what this is doing is basically just creating a metadata of the event that did take place on your system, just as evidence to say that this definitely did take place. Now, the thing with event is that they can either be structured or unstructured. So let me see if I can pull up a quick. I'll stop sharing because I want to make sure that I bring this to life for you guys. Give me a second. Let me pull out F11. Let me pull out draw.io.
Qradar, our favorite tool.
Oh yeah, I love it.
You can use it for everything.
Right, I love it. All right, so let's see draw.io. And let's actually make this come to life so you guys really understand what I'm talking about here. So so blank, and then put it in downloads, and then let's call this SIEM. And by the way, if anyone has any question at any point, please feel free to stop me and ask me to clarify. So some of this concept you would not understand initially, but it's just there for you to at least begin to get an exposure of it. And if you're really, really new to this and you're wondering why do I care about logs and why does any of this matter? Well, great question. Don't worry, very soon it's gonna feel, it's gonna feel awesome. All right, so let's grab a hacker, which is Nathan's cousin. I don't know where he is. By the way, Nathan, if I'm making
My
joke,
cousin,
yeah, if I'm making fun of you,
Bob Boyle.
Bob Boy, that's it. Usually I get a hacker here. Why am I not getting one? Yeah, there you go. This good old boy. All right, so let's say Bob Boyle is here, and then say this is Precious here, and Precious just wants to go to facebook.com. She wants to go do the normal stuff that she does every day, which is, go through, looks at, her family, says hi to family, and then, log out just like a normal person. Definitely does not watch any reels or do any gossiping on there. But yeah, so this is Facebook server here. Now, some of this I'll simplify them for simplicity's sake, so bear in mind. And this is let's say Precious works for CyberLynk. So this is CyberLynk in our server here, and this is Precious computer. She's on her computer, and then her computer then sends all her traffic. I don't know why that's doing that. Well, her computer sent all her traffic to the CyberLynk server, and then CyberLynk server sends that traffic back to facebook.com. All right, and then Facebook. Let's do that again. For some reason, she finds a link on Facebook, and that link is a link from a threat actor. Say someone goes, "Hey, check this out, win $1 million, from this or whatnot," and the threat actor sends that to Facebook, and Precious goes ahead without knowing to click that link, and then that link basically downloads malware on her computer, right? Malicious malware gets downloaded. What happens? Well, while Precious' computer might be compromised now, and there's a whole different things that can happen on her computer, right? Let's just embed in. Sorry guys, I'm trying to make this work on the spot. Whilst this doesn't sound like a lot of things have happened, well, something malicious has taken place. What is actually likely to happen here is that if login is enabled on this CyberLynk server, the fact that Precious downloaded a malware from Facebook would be recorded somewhere, and that piece is what is called a log message. And then this log message could be downloaded, malware from, say from Facebook. So, or it could be, looked at a recipe on how to, I don't know, make sandwich. Now I'll stop picking at Precious for a second and go, and then GP, perhaps GP, I don't know, is learning how to make dad jokes. Hey, Pushka's here. Hi, Pushka. He's still joining. Hi, Pushka. Welcome to the party, mate. A little bit late, but better than not showing up at all. All right, so dad jokes. He's looking at dad jokes logs. And guys, by the way, some of my drawing, needs work. Like he needs to not see the light of day. So if you think so with me, let me know and we can discuss that later. So what's actually happening here is that all the activity that this user is doing, all of the activities that they're partaking in is being recorded in a log message, assuming auditing is turned on this server. So what then happen is, based on the diagram that I just showed you guys, all of that data can either be picked up by any of these data sources here. So the data source here actually picks up that data and then sends it to the SIEM platform. And the SIEM platform would first of all process that log message, and it'll grab some key things. So usually there are key things that get picked up. One is the time of the event, when the event took place. Two is what user actually committed that event or took the action that is being looked at or being processed. Where was the action taken? What actually happened? In this case, downloaded malware from Facebook.com in disguise of actually winning $1 million or trying to win $1 million. And then was this downloaded? And then things like HTTPS protocol, FTP, all of these things actually comes to the picture, and you begin to see how it all works. Now, all of this data is actually pulled out of the log message, like I just showed there, and then it is stored in the SIEM. And then a copy of that log would go into something called an indexer. So an indexing is basically a place or a central repository where all of the logs is stored, so that the SIEM can access that log whenever anyone tries to try to look for it. Now the cool thing here is to take a step backward. Say for example, that CyberLynk server that I just showed before. Let's say for example, the CyberLynk server here gets formatted or deleted or somehow it get knocked offline. Well, no problems, because we still have the logs stored in the data storage on the SIEM. So it doesn't matter. This is a point in time activity, but that point in time activity has been captured and stored on the log repository and log indexing. Now, some SIEM platforms do not have indexing. We discuss this as we go forward, like LogScale. LogScale doesn't use indexing. It actually uses something completely different, which is outside the scope of this conversation, to avoid confusing you guys. But just assume that every single SIEM platform out there would actually index data. So once that data is indexed, right, and say, Paul is a cybersecurity analyst. Paul comes around, and Paul is looking at the log messages on the platform and going, I wonder what's happening at cyberlink.io company, because they are a client in the SOC. What are they actually doing there? Who is doing anything? And then all of a sudden, Paul spots something weird. Maybe a .py file coming from Facebook. Is like, why is there a Python file coming from Facebook? This looks a bit strange. And then Paul looks into that a little bit deeper, and then Paul actually highlights that as something worth looking into further. And this is basically the sort of approach or the sort of activity that would take place in a typical day in a SOC, right? Now, what happens is, because there's, again, like I talked about big data, because there's quite a lot of data that is going through this pipeline every single day. Like, the measurement of this data is actually called EPS, so events per seconds or events per day. So the events per seconds here could literally, I know for some organizations, we could be talking about 2 gigs, 5 gigs per seconds, which ultimately comes down to 24 gigs, whatever. I don't know how many seconds is in a day. I think it's 8,000 or 2,400. I think so. I don't quite remember. But the reality is, you can see how this can easily build up. And some organizations that are big, an example would be, Chevron in Nigeria, or it could be, CBA in Australia. The data storage house that they have is actually quite humongous. They could be pulling close to 1 terabyte of logs per day. And it becomes a bit of a bottleneck if we keep continuously storing this data in the indexer. So to solve that problem, you need to actually account for something called scalability. So scalability is essentially being able to, to grow the platform as the logs volumes build. And with that, you actually don't want to continuously scale forever, because there's obviously a cost to it. Businesses have to make a business decision on, do I want to store this log forever? But if they decide to go down that path, thank God there's a solution. So the solution is called archiving, or code storage for short. So code storage is essentially how you would take that log that's been indexed or stored, and then compress it using compression algorithms. And then the log that is currently, say, 2 terabyte would then become 200 gigs. So it basically shrinks it and compresses it to be stored for a later time. And then whenever that gets required, or it's needed by the court, or an audit or request for the log, you can actually decompress that as well. And the process of decompressing that is something that the SIEM also has the capability to do as well. I've said a lot. I want to take a pause. to see if anyone had any questions.
Yeah, Sammy, just curious and just from my understanding, right? This particular monitoring tool, where does it sit? It just behind the firewall or before the fire? I mean, like you have a tool like DMZ kind of a thing.
Cool. Let's actually demonstrate that. So what Paul is asking is the same platform. Does it sit? Let's see. I'll get a cool one. Yeah, I'll get a cool one. So let's.
Earlier on, you said that 2,400 seconds is like
a day.
It's like a day or worth, but no, that's like 40 minutes.
Right. Okay. Is it like
what your? It's 86,000.
86,000. Oh boy.
If you round down, I put the exact number in the chat.
Mate, you always look after me, mate. So let's say this is the internet here, and this is a firewall. So a firewall is basically a security bridge. So it's a security bridge that stops, or that serves as a deterrent or a way that you can control who's coming in and coming out of your network. That's literally what it is. So organizations will put a firewall in place to ensure that not anyone can just walk through, or not anyone can just send logs through the environment. And usually after that firewall, you would find something called a router. And what Paul is describing is another thing called a DMZ. So a DMZ is essentially where you have two different firewalls, and then one of the firewall is the edge firewall. So this is the edge firewall, and then within that you can have a server. Where did I go? Here. You can have a server here. So again, by the way, for those who don't know, a server is just a computer that is specifically used for, not for end user, not for anyone to use, just for processing data and for doing all that cool things. Does anyone have a better description of what a server is? But
a server serves things like services.
Yeah, essentially that's it.
Yeah, you like stuff.
Yeah. So let's say this is CyberLynk.io, right? So CyberLynk.io is on this server here. So the best design that you can have is to not put CyberLynk.io here behind this firewall. So if anyone wants to come visit CyberLynk.io, well, you probably don't want them to also have access to your internal network. So this is where you can have other servers and other services in your environment sitting down here. You probably don't want anyone from the internet to quickly, go through your network and come all the way past here to do something, because the thinking behind this is essentially, what if someone was able to hack your web browser, the web server, because this web server is open to the public. Anyone can see it, just like you can go to cyberlink.io right now and see that the website is live. So this means that this website is out to the public, it's open to the public. So because it's here, it allows for people to be able to view this web server without getting access to the internal network. So this is what a DMZ is. So Paul's question is, do you put the SIEM behind the DMZ, or do you put it within the DMZ? Well, the question to that actually depends on what sort of a SIEM platform you have. So there's two types of SIEM deployment. You can either deploy a SIEM locally, which you guys will be doing, on-prem SIEM during the course, or you can have the SIEM deployed on the cloud. So again, I'm going to repeat what a SIEM means. It means Security Information and Event Management System, or event management. So that's what it is. So you can either have it on the cloud, or you can have it locally on your server. And if you wanted to do that, you probably want to keep that here. So you probably want to store that behind the DMZ zone. So if I can quickly put a container here. But I think Paul, does that answer your question?
Yeah, the main reason why I asked is, like, when collecting the logs, right? So how do you set the rules, like, when you're collecting the logs? For example, you said a Python file, when it's coming through the through the firewall. I mean, some fishy logs are coming in. Is this something? The reason why I asked is why would the monitoring system after the firewall does to take the, get through the logs in?
Yeah, obviously we've made the assumption that nothing detected it all through that, right? So again, for simplicity's sake, let's assume, right, that CyberLynk.io actually cares about security, and they've put a firewall here, right, just by that web server, and this firewall is a cheap stake firewall because CyberLynk.io isn't a multi-billion-dollar business yet. So CyberLynk goes and buys a cheap firewall, right? That doesn't have um, stateful inspection. So stateful inspection means it's actually inspecting the packet. It literally decrypts the packet and look at every single thing inside of the packet. Or let's say it's just doing stateless, which is where it's just looking at the IP address, right? Well, guess what? If it's a stateless detection of firewall, it's looking at the IP address of Facebook. Facebook is not malicious, right? So you can see how this is going to bypass that firewall, because that firewall is not a next gen firewall. It's not actually looking inside of the packet. It's just going, hey, show me your header. You have an IP address. Sweet, you can go. You're good to go. You're secure. I know Facebook.com. Facebook is fine. So this is where this becomes interesting. And like I said to you guys the last time, it's really interesting because a lot of things that happen in cybersecurity is driven by business budget. And this is why I want you guys to be aware of that, because every single decision that ultimately get made in organizations is a business decision. So a business, if you work for a business and the business cannot afford, say, Palo Alto next gen firewall, or Fortinet or Checkpoint or any of the well-known ones, and they go and buy a cheap stake firewall and put it in there, well, guess what? It's going, the threat that would be bypassed, and the threat actor will be able to get access to this user here.
Cool.
Does anyone have any other question?
Just to add to what Paul said, you've been talking about the logs itself. What about the alerts? How does the alerts, how does it, based on the SIEM, you are going to monitor the alert there. So how do I know that there's also a filter, like more of, that we could that based on the rules on the filter, we'll be able to generate the alert. Then where does that come into place then?
Cool. That's a really good question, by the way, Stephen. So let's go back to the diagram for a second, if I can find that. So let's put that up again. So if you guys remember what I said here, that once the log is processed, a bunch of information get grabbed out of it. So that's where the classification happens. Well, by design, unless you have a UEBA SIEM. So UEBA stands for User and Entity-Based Analytics. So User and Entity-Based Analytics is essentially a SIEM, a type of SIEM that is basically using standard deviation and some data, mathematics at the back end to create a baseline of identity. Now, what does identity mean? So identity could be an IP address, it could be a username, it could be a host name. It's just something that can be tied and classified as an asset in an organization, right? So because of that, it can make some calculated decision. An example of a calculated decision that a UEBA system can make is, hey, I know that this user logs on from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. Well, if I see this user log on at 12 a.m. after they've never done that for 2 years that I've been monitoring them, well, that's a deviation from the norm. So that's essentially what UEBA systems are. Again, we're going to touch base on that, but that's actually after the scope of this. But there's content for this on the learning management platform. Again, this is a little bit more advanced for the practical cybersecurity essential course, but it's still something worthwhile that you guys are learning. So now, assuming, let's just for the sake of this, that this is not a UEBA SIEM, this is a normal SIEM, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So this SIEM only processes the data and stores it. It doesn't do anything else. SIEMs by design, by default, will not build use cases. They will not build a dashboard. They will not create any alerts. And this is where a human being actually needs to go in and build detection logic for it. Like, remember how I said Paul is looking at the dashboard here and Paul spots that malware that's been downloaded? Well, a key thing that needs to be done in a normal work environment is Paul would reach out to the detection engineers or people who can write the code that the SIEM understands. So an example is for Microsoft Sentinel, that uses KQL, so a custom query language. For LogScale, it uses LogScale query language, LQL. For Splunk, it uses SPL, which is Splunk processing language. And then for I'm trying to look for the word again. For Elasticsearch, well, it uses Elasticsearch queries. So there's different query languages, or I guess you can call them scripting languages if you will. But I'm sure someone would have my head over that. But just call them query languages. So because there's different types of them, someone would actually have to go and craft that use case, craft the detection logic that would say, hey, if you see this, see that, based on the data that's been processed and stored in the indexer, trigger an alarm. And then that alarm is what an analyst will look at. So that is actually called a detection in cybersecurity. So that's a security alert. So something that's been detected. And there's a different concept which we'll discuss later, which is threat hunting, which is technically how Paul was able to detect that in the first place. Because nothing prompted Paul to go look at the SIEM. Paul is just doing what a good cybersecurity analyst or cybersecurity defender would do, which is looking through the logs and to see if there's anything worthwhile there or anything that looks fishy based on experience, right? So a lot of the work that you'll be doing as a cybersecurity analyst or cybersecurity engineer or cyber defender or any of the other roles, security engineer, is actually being able to spot the black sheep. So that concept is called threat hunting, or again, threat research, really, if you want to call it that way. And then based on that information that's been gathered out of the threat hunt, you can actually feed that to the SIEM to build a detection logic out of it. Does anyone have any other question on? And Stephen, does that answer your question? So essentially, to answer your question in a simple format, a use case, a security use case needs to be created for that event for it to trigger next
Yes.
time. And that's an
Yeah,
exciting career.
that answers.
Yeah, so just from more of a legal perspective or an audit perspective, you mentioned that the logs can be archived.
Yes.
Just to understand in terms of how long they can be archived as well. Because, for example, CCTV records can be kept in Victoria for 30, 90 days.
Yes.
Along that, I don't know how specific it is, but for logs, would that apply as
Yes.
well?
So most systems and
Can I give a go with that based on my understanding?
Stephen,
I
have a go.
think it's based on it's based on the data involved. If it's EU data, like there are some laws involved, like GDPR, and if also depending on the policy of the organization as well, that will determine how long it could be archived.
Yeah.
Am I
That's
right?
pretty spot on. So it's based on the framework. So an example, I'll give you an example. So for Australia here, the Essential 8, the ACSC Essential 8 tells you to store data for a specific amount of time. I think it's 1 year. Now, if the data needs to go to court, so say you're an organization that works in a critical environment, then you have to abide by NIST cybersecurity framework or the ISO 27001. Then some compliance requirement actually wants you to store the data for 7 years.
Okay.
And this is something you obviously, again, it comes down to the framework that you're working with. That is what would tell you how long the data retention should be. But for the most part, all SIEM platforms by default would store searchable data. So again, keep in mind, I use the word searchable data. So searchable data means data that is within that storage, that initial storage bucket. They will keep that data for 90 days. And then after that, it gets archived into a stage 1 archive. So stage 1 archive would archive the data for 6 months. And then there's a cold storage. So that's it, so this is hot storage here. Another one, which is stage 2, is warm storage, where the data is stored for 6 months, and it's slightly compressed. But the deep compression is the one where the data is archived for a really long time, and that's the one where it's a bit harder to unscramble essentially. But it can be done, really. So that's
Okay.
what most organizations would do. They will basically just take the data, archive it, and throw it into Microsoft blob storage or AWS S3 in a bucket, and then just leave the data there. So whenever it's needed, say for some reason there's a cybersecurity incident and the court requests for that data, they will go and pull that data out and then basically retrieve the data, unarchive it, unzip it, and then basically make that data come back to the hot storage. So it's basically the process of taking it from the code storage back to the hot storage so that someone can then go and search for it on the web UI.
Yep. All right.
I can't imagine how slow the SIEM would be if you seriously store your data up to 7 years. Gosh.
Oh yeah, people do that. Like a lot of organizations are required to do that by law. Now, don't ask me who's gonna have to go retrieve the data, but the point is they have to store it by 7 years. Actually, I have a story for you guys. So I used to, when I was a cybersecurity engineer, geez, feels like years ago. One of the work I did was for a SIEM product called LogRhythm. I don't know if anyone has heard of that. Has anyone heard of the SIEM product called LogRhythm? LogRhythm.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it rings a bell.
So LogRhythm is one of the well-known SIEM platforms. It's actually quite well used in the Middle East and Africa because it's one of those ones that's happy to go take the oil money. But one of the annoying things about this, go ahead, Nathan. Basically, make your joke, man. Just have a go at me.
I was just gonna say, that part of the world also likes to keep the rhythm with the music. I don't know. I don't know
you're
what
good.
I'm saying.
They like keeping the rhythm, so they wanted the log to keep the rhythm. All right, I'm making no sense either. So now, one of the things that did happen during one of my, like quite a lot of the times is we were working for this particular customer that I cannot share, obviously, due to NDA, and that's one of the things you guys are going to learn in cybersecurity is even if you leave the organization, you still cannot share the information of what customers you worked for. So it's very important that you keep the secrets and the information private. Even if someone has got a gun point to your head, you're not allowed to reveal information about what client you worked for and what you were doing for that client. That's really, really essential. So unless obviously you get written approval from the employer, the ex-employer saying that you're allowed to share this information. So the key thing here is that one of the things that I would often get asked is to go and retrieve data that is 6 months old, and LogRhythm is notorious for being slow. Like once you start the archiving or whatever the log retriever process, the whole system literally comes crashing down. So I have to do it at at middle of the night, and for a 30 days 90 days data is stored in the WAMP storage, so that's fine. So any data that is above 90 days, say let's say 90 days and 4 weeks, well that extra 1 month data can take 12 hours to be retrieved. 12 hours. So it's an example of how painful it is. So again, we've moved on from LogRhythm. And by the way, great news. I don't know if it's great news, but Exabeam, which is a well-known UEBA system that I was also an SME for, just got bought, or perhaps, I don't know who bought each other, but essentially there's been a merger between Exabeam and LogRhythm, so they're now one singular platform. And Exabeam, by the way, is a UEBA platform. So they're known for user and entity-based analytics. Just like I said before. And for those who are wondering what that is, this is how you actually spell that. Close that. No. Oh, I think I can move this down. There you go. Cool. So this is it here, UEBA. So it's user and entity-based behavioral analytics. That's what it is. And like I said, this is a type of SIEM or log aggregator that is able to make decisions based on the baseline that's been created, which is often based on some standard deviation mathematics, where it will basically say, hey, I know this user, or I know this identity, or I know this host to do these things. So when I see something that is not known to me from the past, I will trigger an alert based on that. And those are the kind of SIEMs that will probably be the next gen. Again, there's an exercise for you guys to go do more research out there in this one, so you guys will meet that. I think it's 2.1 that you guys will see that. So looking forward to you guys obviously doing some research on that one. Does anyone else have any other question? And I did not think that this content would take us 1 hour. Jeez, just because I keep talking, huh? Does anyone have any other question?
No, I think it's because
Nathan, go. You think it's because what?
I'll let people ask questions first before I say
Please,
anything.
if none of this makes sense, this is really critical because that's literally what you're going to be doing at work. and we're going to be doing labs about this. So you're going to be collecting logs and sending it to the SIEM. So please feel free to ask me another question, either about this really bad scribble here or about the diagram here, which I don't know if it's better, but hopefully it is. Cool, no questions. All right, perfect. Let's actually get into the fun bit. So now let's say all of this has taken place, all of this has happened. Now there's a last but final component, which is a SOAR platform. So SOAR stands for security orchestration, automation, and response. So security orchestration and automation and response. So what a SOAR platform essentially does is it enables you to automate things. So if you noticed, all of the things I described here are quite manual. So you receive alerts, you try to triage the alert, go to VirusTotal, which you guys have done in the previous lab, for those who have done that. You go to VirusTotal, go to Malware Bazaar, go to abuse.ch, Cisco Talos, all of the different platforms where you go and look for indicators. Well, there is a platform that allows you to do that in an automated fashion, and that's called a SOAR platform. So a SOAR platform enables you to automate repetitive tasks, and this is why you guys are also learning programming, and this is why you're going to learn regex in Unit 2. I think at the end of Unit 2 or Unit 3 in the practical cybersecurity analyst course. And for those who are doing cybersecurity essential, that comes later on, and once you finish that initial basic initial entry level understanding of what cybersecurity is and whatnot, so you don't get overwhelmed. So all of the automation would happen here. So let's say, for example, you wanted to automate, whenever an alert triggers and there's a malicious IP address, you want to automate for that IP address to go to, to say ChatGPT, for ChatGPT to look at that IP address and tell you all the information that it can tell you about that IP address. Well, that can be automated using a SOAR platform. And these are usually very expensive, obviously. So this is not something you can just go and buy as an individual. Quite actually, everything here is very expensive. There are open source SIEM platforms. One of those is called Wazuh. So you guys will either be deploying that or be deploying Splunk, because I have access to someone at Splunk who can give us access to use Splunk to practice. So rather than using Wazuh, you guys will actually use what you can actually get a job based on. Because if you have Splunk experience, a lot of the jobs are asking for Splunk experience. Rather than going to work with Wazuh, you can actually learn the platform that you'll be using at work. I think that's pretty much it for introduction to SIEM. I'm going to break this video down once we obviously finish and put them into different part of the course of the content, so you guys can obviously get to rewatch it as you're going through. Hopefully none of my dad jokes or Nathan's weird dad jokes comes through. All right, it's that time of the day or time of the night. Threat landscape. Woohoo! Can I get some claps here, people? Don't be boring. Threat landscape is the best part of this conversation. Come on, people. All right, let's go. So the first one.
Well, look,
Yahoo!
I'm
There you go.
clapping.
That's more like it. That's more like it. Thanks for the rescue, guys. So for anyone who wants to jump off, feel free to do so.
Fun!
All right. Now you're heckling. It's no longer fun.
Yay!
All right.
Oh, for your first exercise in Python, you'll be writing a really annoying script to replay Alex say "Yay" over and over again.
Times 1,000.
Yay!
And blow your arm. Oh, dude, that's funny. Okay, so the first one on the list here is a 17-year-old boy, or actually, is it a boy? I think it was a boy. 17-year-old arrested in connection with cyber attack affecting transport for London. So the London public transport network has been shut down over the last 2 weeks because of a 17-year-old boy. So let's read on. If I can find it, I think I can do this. There we go.
For the record, your whole SIEM talk was only about half an hour because the first half an hour was like introduction.
Oh, look at that! Thanks for making me feel better, mate. I felt like I rambled on for like an hour. Jeez. But hopefully people are are excited about this stuff as I am. Like, are you guys loving this? By the way, is this cool? Oh boy. I should not have asked that.
Love it, man.
All right. Cool. Now let's minimize that so I can.
The
They're loving
17-year
it
old
silently.
seems like
Oh, go on.
a
Go
lot
on, Paul.
of playing video games.
Yeah.
Because of the video games, these guys are.
Well, they've got a photo of a boy here,
You
so
know,
I'm guessing it's a boy. Or are they discriminating? Oh yes, I mean, no. Don't go into this conspiracy theory. Don't go into the political correctness conversation. That's bad. Anyways, British authorities are on Thursday announced the arrest of a 70-year-old male in connection with a cyber attack affecting Transport for London (TfL). The 17-year-old male was detained on suspicion of Computer Misuse Act offenses in relation to the attack, which was announced on TfL on the 1st of September. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, they've been dealing with it. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I actually think you guys should look at the photo. There's a long queue to get it to work in the TfL agency because they're having to reset. Actually, let me not get too deep into it. Let's read it. The teenager, who's from West Warsaw, is said to have been arrested on September the 5th, 2024, following an investigation that was launched in the incident's aftermath. The law enforcement agency said the unnamed individual was questioned and subsequently let go on bail. Attacks on public infrastructure such as this can be hugely disruptive and lead to severe consequences for local communities and national systems. Deputy Director Paul, hey Paul, it's you, right? Foster. You have to claim this, Deputy Director, head of the NSA's National Cybersecurity Crime Unit.
soon,
Yeah.
man, soon.
So, by the way, the NSA is the version of ASIO in Australia, and in Nigeria, I believe it's the version of EFCC as well. And Pedro, what's the version of this in Brazil? Do you guys have a hacking group? Call it a government hacking group.
We do, but like I can't remember.
What the name of it?
But let me check.
All right.
You can
Yeah,
keep going.
keep going. Pashka, what is it called in India? What's the hacking? What's the name of the secret agency like the CIA in India?
Oh, I'm forgetting the name.
CBI.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
CBI.
Ashka, I was gonna say, did you ascon from India? That's that why you're pretending like you forgot? Anyways, no more jokes. So that
INCC.
Okay, cool. Nah, that's nice. So the swift response by TfL following the incident has enabled us to act quickly, and we are grateful for this continued cooperation with our investigation, which remains ongoing. TfL has since confirmed that the security breach has led to the unauthorized access of bank account numbers and sought codes from around 5,000 customers, and that it will be directly contacting those impacted. Although there has been very little impact on our customers so far, the situation is evolving, and our investigation have identified that certain customer data has been accessed. TfL said. So let's actually look at what actually happened. So based on what I saw, why are they using Scatter Spider in TTP here? Well, news agencies too lazy to do some actual research. Sorry guys, it's a bit. Scatter Spider is not the one who did the job. It's a teenage boy. The London Public Transport Agency. By the way, Scatter Spider is actually a well-known threat group, and I think you guys should probably just Google that whilst I'm talking. The London Public Transport Agency is also requiring around 30,000 members of its staff to complete an IT identity check by attending an appointment at a specified TfL location. And this is where the queue is coming from. 30,000 people having to reset their MFAs. Now, that's interesting. All right, to avoid having to read on, but let me actually tell you guys what happened. This boy actually called the help desk claiming to be an IT service person. So this is a phishing attack, and then got the IT service desk person to reset an MFA for a user and give them the MFA ID, and then they were able to log on. Good old phishing attack, right? It's good old 101 phishing attack. And this is something you guys are going to be learning. There's going to be a deep dive on how to actually detect phishing attack, how to craft a phishing attack of your own and make it believable. And that I'm actually quite excited for that. So this is this one. Does anyone have anything to add to that before we move on to the next threat landscape? But I guess the point is, even a 17-year-old boy can cause major, havoc, leading to 5,000 customer data, being stolen, and the TFL having to basically re-authenticate MFA for 30,000 users. That must be hard. Anyways, any feedback? Any questions?
Quick question: did they had to set up the MFA afterwards, or what was the MFA mentioned
Yeah. So
again?
basically, how the attack happened was the boy called the help desk, claiming to be someone from IT, and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I've just reset my MFA." Well, guess what? He actually did indeed try to log on. So guess what? If you're trying to log on, this is what MFA is. Multi-factor, by the way, for those who don't know what that is, it stands for multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is a way for you to validate that someone is indeed who they claim to be without it just being username and password. That's what MFA is. So the boys called the call center, the help desk, and claiming to be, hey, I'm Semi. I'm just trying to log onto my computer, and for some reason my MFA is not working. Can you please reset the MFA for me and give me the code? And that was how the boy was able to get access to the system. So they did have MFA, but using phishing, and this is something actually called, it's called MFA man in the middle attack. But in this case, it's actually literally just good old social engineering attack using phishing.
Social engineering, yeah.
And there's a lot of really good content that we've put together for that you guys will see soon. I'm quite excited for that. It's quite interactive and really fun. Any other person? Does anyone have any other question?
Yeah. No questions. There is a lot of exciting stuff coming.
So was the 17-year-old part of Scattered Spider, or there's different sort of?
I doubt it. If they're part of Scattered Spider.
So what's the mentioning about? What's the mentioning of Scattered Spider?
Yeah, I think that the mention or relationship to Scattered Spider is because of the way that Scattered Spider actually performs this type of attack before. So this is based on their TTP, right? Yeah.
Oh, so it's similar.
Yeah.
So Scatter Spider used the same sort of way of sort of social engineering those MFA codes, right?
And they've obviously attributed this to Scatter Spider, but I don't think it's Scatter Spider group. Like, I don't think so. But anyways, all right. Nathan, do you want to do the GitLab one? Because I know this one is one that you're pumped about. I can keep scrolling for you.
Sure.
Do you want to start a proper threat landscape? Introduction. Good day, Rudy Duties.
Wait. Okay, so you're actually still talking about threat landscape. I thought you were talking about the lab walkthrough.
Well, I think that lab walkthrough is going to be interesting today. But yeah, let's talk about threat landscape. Do you want to do this one quickly?
Okay, you want me to share my screen, or I just read off yours?
You can read off mine just to avoid the tech.
Well, all right, I'll just read off yours. So okay, so let's scroll to the top and let's do like a trailer. GitLab patches critical flaw allowing unauthorized pipeline job for execution, and then we scroll to the bottom and show some details, and then we scroll back to the
top. Are you guys enjoying this? All right, there you go. Now the trailer is done. Now for the real movie.
All right. Okay. All right. So GitLab on Wednesday released security updates to address 17 security vulnerabilities, including a critical flaw that allowed an attacker to run pipeline jobs as an arbitrary user. The issue tracked as CVE, some random number, carries a CVS score of 9.9 out of a maximum score of 10.0, which is critical.
Woo, ding, 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 ding.
An issue was discovered in GitLab. Yep. Ding, ding, ding. The issue was discovered in GitLab CE/EE affecting. I actually don't know what the CE/EE means, but sure, affecting all versions starting from versions 8.14 prior to 17.1.0. It's a 7.
Yeah. Just go blah 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 blah.
From 17.0 prior. Okay. Different different version numbers, whatever, and starting from more different version numbers, which I'm going to skip, which allows an attacker to trigger a pipeline as an arbitrary user under certain circumstances. The company said in an alert, quote, the vulnerability along with 3 high severity, medium severity, and 2 low severity bugs have been released under versions blah 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 for GitLab Community Edition, CVE blah blah blah, score of
the
CVS
C
score
and
9.6.
that's what
Wow.
that means. Community Edition and Enterprise Edition. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense now. While there is no evidence of active exploitation of this flaw, users are recommended to apply patches as soon as possible to mitigate against these potential threats earlier. This May, US cybersecurity infrastructure, yeah, all right, it's an acronym. The CISA revealed that the critical GitLab vulnerability with this random number and a score of 10 had come under active exploitation in the wild.
So that's a previous.
Found this article interesting. Please let us know.
Previous vulnerability that was picked up in the year 2023 instead.
All my family's talking about this outside. It's going to be a funny conversation when I get off the call.
All right, I think that's pretty much enough. By the way, just to clarify, so the NerdKnight episode is meant to be, it's not meant to replace the learning on the learning management platforms. It's meant to basically be for us all to have fun, to catch up, to feel energized, to go back and study. Because one of the things that CyberLynk believes in strongly is that learning should not be done in silo, because it can be frustrating when no one else is there with you and going through the same journey. But by us coming together and building a community, all of a sudden learning becomes fun. And that's the mental shift that I'm trying to help you guys get. That studying can actually be fun. That learning can be fun if you do it with the mentality of let's learn as a team, let's learn together. So these sessions are not meant to replace what's on the learning management platform. All of the content you need is already there. We're releasing content every single week, so that's not an issue at all. This is just for us to catch up and have fun.
I think we should ask the people what format of the threat landscape they prefer.
All right, and let's do it. So do you guys like this format of threat landscape? Or does anyone have any ideas or feedback? Please feel free to unmute yourself. And for some people, this is the first time they're seeing it, so they probably don't know a different version.
Yeah, it's all good, man, from my end. But just a question in regards to the platform. Has it all the submission has been graded yet, or is any?
Right.
I haven't seen any submission hasn't been graded.
So that's basically a good question, Paul. So the reason I haven't graded some of the actual submission that you guys have put in there is because I'm waiting for you to finish unit 1. So once you finish unit 1, then that will be graded and you will get a certificate for that.
I don't know which one.
So what was Paul's question?
Oh, you mean the last exercise and the coding?
Sorry.
So
there is another. So there's another one. So once you finish all of that and you submit, you would get a good grading for all of the units. But Alex, you had another question?
No. So my question is about. I didn't get Paul's questions. Was that about the platform?
Yeah, Paul was just asking about the submission and grading of the submissions. So grading of the content submitted on the platform. So we don't put a lot of measure. We don't put a lot of value on actual grading because we're not trying to get you to to be the first in class from a grade point of view. We're trying to get everyone to learn. So therefore, we don't put a lot of emphasis on that. But what we do put an emphasis on is actually doing it, which is why there's a lot of feedback that comes through as you guys are learning. So the feedback will continue to come through. Why is that not working? Give me a second. I didn't realize that my camera was turned off. Oh, guys, sorry about that. The feedback will continue to come through, and if there's any grading, that usually gets done at the end of the unit, and you get a certificate for that unit, which you can obviously post on LinkedIn or any other social media page. So that's really how it's structured. So the more the focus on the emphasis is on the learning rather than on getting a grade or getting H1. This is not, we don't do university. We are here about we're about having fun and doing some really cool technical stuff.
I don't think you can.
I got an A and you got an A+. Well done.
Well, I got an A++ with a minus and a plus and a times.
What about a C++?
That's a good one. Yes, you got a C sharp. All right. I think we're going to do some coding, but we've already gone over by another half an hour. So I'm very worried that sessions are beginning to go into 2.5 hours each Saturday. It's still fun. So do you guys want to stay with myself and Nathan? I'm happy to stay and show you guys some cute, cool things to code to get you started with Python. Pushka, obviously you are good on that end, unless there's anything new that you want to learn. But if everyone wants to stay and learn that, let me know. If not, we can close this session.
Yeah, I'll be there for another 5 minutes and anyway, I'm watching the videos with Nathan's thing, and I'll follow that.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
Steven, do you want?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
I could just spend like 5 minutes, but if the video is available, I could watch
there'll be
that
videos
later.
on the learning management. Again, like I said, these sessions, the NerdKnight sessions, for us to have fun and it's a community. All of the learning still remains on the learning management platform. So this is just an added advantage for you guys, because I know how hard it is to watch a video later. So this is an advantage for you guys to actually be live and be present and ask questions. That's why we have this. Because when you're watching a video, you cannot ask the person question. You can go, hey, hang on, I don't get the other part, right? And this is why it's ultimate, making sure that you guys gain an edge. And this is where that gaining an edge piece comes from, right? Doing a little bit extra so you guys get more value from the process. I have no idea why my light is really bad today, but yeah. Pedro, do you want to hang around?
Yeah,
cool. All right, Nathan, right, let's do it. Cool. By the way, for anyone who hasn't set up their lab, there's a lot of information that you've already missed, but that's fine. That's on the learning management platform. You can follow along as well. So, Mr. Awesome, feel free to share your screen and begin.
All right, let's go and do stuff.
Sorry, by the way, Sammy, you said that you're going to open some more material or something on the platform on Saturday, but I haven't seen any updates. So
can you have a look again? Refresh your browser. There should be content there for 2.1.
Because I watched.
Well, you have.
No, I had a look. I had a look already. Sammy, that's nothing there. Even I wanted to ask you about that.
So there's content for Python. That's obviously, like I told you guys last week, we're working on the Python for cybersecurity and automation course separately. So we're just moving the content across both courses, so you guys get value for that. And the SIEM content should also be in there as well. So maybe there's some issue there. Maybe it's still hidden. I'll have a look at it later offline. Thanks for the feedback. Nathan, over to you, mate.
Yeah, I think the Python stuff is still hidden for now because I don't actually know how to unhide it yet.
Okay. That's all right. All right, let's go ahead. Everyone grab your IDEs and let's go have fun.
Does everyone actually see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So where we were last week is I don't know how many people would still be up to this point. I guess I should zoom in so you guys can also see what I'm looking at. So we made a repo in GitHub.
Yeah. Can you quickly go through that? If we just quickly run through what we did. That'd be nice.
Yep. So I've set up a GitHub account, and all we did to go and make a repo was just to go to that button where I said
repositories.
I clicked on my your repositories. I go click new I give my repository a name, a description. I've set this to private because in most organizations, you're probably going to be working on a repo that's private unless you're working on a tool that you plan to open source or something like that. So we added a README, we added a git ignore file, which I'll explain a little bit later what that is. We added a license, which I set to MIT. And then, of course, we create the repo. And then if I go back, if everyone remembers, I made a typo, and this was supposed to be example repo, but yeah, there's no X. So, so
the community
this is
decided to leave it as it is. So,
yep,
make it
absolutely. Unique. Yep, absolutely, make it unique. And
no, it's looks like he's silent and I'm full of repo.
Yes. That's exactly right. We also downloaded and installed Git so we can use it on the command line. So this tool. And we had to use that to clone our repository. So for anyone else who wants to do the same thing, if you want to clone it, you just have to go git clone, add your username to the beginning of the URL. But then I also forgot, before you do that, you have to type in the command git config user
global.
It's optional. So user dot name, and then you type in a value like, I don't know, your username. Since I've already put in my username is going to be Legendary Lobster. And if I change this to email, there's my email. So you would have to configure this with your username and email. Then you clone this, and then you're going to get a UI prompt that will ask you, oh, can you sign in? You can sign in using your credentials through the browser, or you can sign in with a token. And by token, to create that token, we had to go over to settings, developer settings, personal access token, tokens, classic. And I may as well actually just delete this and do it again. Generate a new token. Of course, enter my credentials again. Give my token a name, an expiry date. Set the permissions to full control. Generate the token. And then you guys will probably do this again if your tokens have expired. Let's say you want to make a change.
So that's where one question comes from. So because I said last week we set our tokens and I made it 7 days. So what do we need to do now? Like, because they should have expired or about to expire.
Yeah. So if it's already expired, you just have to regenerate the token again. Set the permissions to full control, like I just showed on the screen.
Yep.
And to re-authenticate it, all you have to do is just try to commit it to your GitHub repo. So if I go git add readme on the command line, you can also do this in the UI, but I'll show the command line first. So if I do git add readme, because that's the file that was modified, and then I say git status, that shows that this is green. So this has been staged, and by staged I mean it's been set aside so that it can be ready to be placed in a commit, and that commit oh gosh, Sammy, do you know how I would explain this?
So basically staging is the process or the stage before the file actually gets moved to your cloud project. So this is a local copy of the file, and then when you stage it, when you commit it, you're basically saying, hey, next time you connect to my GitHub server, this file I want you to put this file in there. So it's basically just getting the file ready to be moved to the cloud. or if you have a local server,
Yeah, that's
just
right.
move it to your. So it's basically just getting ready.
Yep, absolutely. And when you're so staging it is getting ready to upload it. Committing it is taking it to the next stage again, but you're adding an actual message that'll be visible when you actually push to your GitHub repo, and then pushing it into the repo is actually the action of uploading the data to the repo. So if I say git commit -m for message, just say something like testing or initial commit or whatever you really want to say. One file has been changed, 3 insertions have been made, 1 deletion, and I just say git push origin main because that's the name of the branch I'm pushing to. It says that my authentication has failed. So if I do this again, it'll bring up a prompt, or it should bring up a prompt. There we go. If I grab my token, I can re-authenticate. And now this is pushed to that repo. So if I go back to, not settings, if I go back to, oh, actually it's right here. I can now see the line I added.
Yep.
Any questions?
Questions?
It was probably a bit fast what I just did.
There's already a
imagine.
video for that later. Alex, you can ask a question. That's fine.
Yeah, I was just I just got a little bit lost there because that was fast.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
yep.
you
that's
can
all
come
right.
back and watch this later. And also, this content is already on the learning platform as well, Alex. So we just unhide that. Obviously, there had been some errors there. We'll sort that out, and you guys should have access to this. So there's a guide on how to do this on the platform.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
So yep.
I'll show you how to do the exact same thing I did in the command line, but actually through the UI in VS Code. So if I just say, this is the second line, save. If I go over to source control here, you can see all of the everything that I've pushed into the repo along with the messages and stuff like that. And if I say, well, actually, if I go to the 3 dots up here, I have more control over on the kinds of actions that I can do to all the files. And if I say that I want to stage all changes, this is now staged. I can now give this a message and say testing added second line, maybe.
Nathan, why is it good to have to put a commit message? Why is that useful?
It tells people what your maybe that's something you should explain, Sammy.
That's all right.
I can't think of what I actually
that's all right.
want to say.
So in an enterprise environment, right? So usually when you're working on the code, you're not the only one working on the code. There's usually multiple people working on the same code, and this is what DevOps is, and this is what shifting left is. So that's continuous development, continuous deployment. So continuous development and continuous deployment means that there's multiple people working on the same project at the same time. So to ensure that there is actually trackability and that there is trace for information or things that have changed, a commit message actually allows you to describe what changes you've made and why you've made the change. That allows the person who's going to accept your merge request to know what changes you did and the explanation for it. So that way, it essentially gives you an opportunity to let yourself know what you did. If you come back 10 years to see why did I make this change, that's also good for yourself. Another thing it does, it allows you to explain your changes and why you made the change to someone who's going to review it and review your merge request in the future. So what Nathan has done here is Nathan is committed directly to the main branch. Often in an actual real environment, you would not be committing to the main branch. You would be committing to your own branch, and then you go into GitHub or GitLab and then request for a merge request, because the main is basically production, and that's usually locked.
Yep.
So yeah, sorry. Does anyone have any question about that, by the way?
Just says basically a manual log.
Yeah. So it's basically just like message to say, hey, I changed, I made a change to this. It's just there. So yeah, like it's good. By the way, it's good coding practice. You want to make sure you have a commit message, because again, it's basically the same thing as comments in programming. You never know what you're going to come back when you're going to come back to the code or to your repository in 5 years time and going, why did I make this change again? That head scratching moment can be saved by you just going to your commit messages and going, all right, I see what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yep. Documentation is everything.
Keep going, Mr. Master.
So, yep. All right, I will keep going. So I've added my message. I've staged my file. All I have to do now is commit. This has now been committed. And to push it, I just go push.
And if it's not synced, and so if the token is expired, once I try to push, it will give me like an error message or something.
Yep. It'll say that your authentication has failed, and then if you try to push again, it'll prompt you telling you that you need to sign in with your token.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I guess
Nathan,
next, I'll show you some of the stuff.
All right. So I think you're gonna go next to what I wanted you to talk about, which is what is readme.md. What is that? Why is that useful?
Yeah. Yep. So I was just about to go to Markdown. So we'll do that. I'm just going to show everyone how to split the view so you can get like a real-time view on what's actually going on. So if you right-click on this tab up here and you go to split up, you can split the page in two. And then if on your keyboards you hold Control Shift and press V, this will render the actual Markdown language live. So you can make changes to the document, and instead of having to manually refresh the page on GitHub or something like that to see your changes, you can just see the changes happening in front of you as you type. So let's say, for example, I just want to copy and paste these to a few extra lines. The hash signifies a heading or whatever that you want to add to your document. And so the hash, like one single hash character is like, if you guys know what HTML is, there's a tag called H1. It makes I don't know, like a block of text that's like 25 pixels in size or something like that. This is kind of what this is equivalent to. And there's other types of H tags. There's H1 to H5. And I imagine people watching this video who have no idea what HTML probably have no idea what that means. I'll explain. So the more hashes I add to this heading, the smaller the text gets. Oh, whoops. 3, 4, 5.
I think there's a sixth one as well.
Headings.
I'm not sure if it's
There might be a 6. That one's so small that I don't even know. Is there any difference from No, there's no difference from just the normal text.
And it's no longer heading.
Yeah, no. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do with Markdown. Like let's say I'm just going to put Sammy's name here. Let's say I wanted to put this in italics. I add one asterisk each side. Let's say I don't want to make this bold. If I add 2 asterisks each side, this now becomes bold. For some reason, this is Markdown does this weird thing where sometimes it'll put the text on the same line, even if this is put on a new line. And one thing you can do to solve this is pretty sure Markdown supports HTML, and the HTML tag for putting something onto a new line is BR, which stands for break. So that's one potential way you can solve it.
Is it the same break as in Python?
Yeah. So the same line break character in Python is /n.
But obviously that's not recognized here. Yeah.
But no, it's not.
So Alex, the same concept but different syntax, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I saw that in Python you just write and break, just word break.
Nathan, I thought you were just gonna finish that sentence. Sammy is awesome. Do I have to buy you steak or something nice for you today? Sammy is bored.
I don't know what part of you is bold, but I don't know. Your knees or something.
You'll be surprised. All right. Why are we going down the drain here? Keep going.
I don't know. It's a good question. Sammy loves.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That you're not lying about. No. I do not like veggies.
So if you add 2 of these squiggly lines per each side of the character, you can strike through it. Put a line through it. Cross it out. Make Sammy tell you that he loves veggies.
Yeah.
So, are you using HTML right now, or like what language are you?
This is called Markdown.
Oh, Markdown.
Yeah.
So is that a language, or is it just sort of scripting?
It's what you call a Markdown language.
It's based on
so
it's actually based
HTML
on XML.
is well, HTML is based on
so that's why
XML.
it's able to see things like line break and in a paragraph and whatnot.
Markdown is a special language which renders, or when it's read, it's translated into HTML. But it's just, I guess you could say it's like a simpler form of HTML. HTML is kind of annoying because you get a lot of these,
open and close
tags and brackets and it's not really the nicest thing to read. This is a lot more readable and easier to work with, I think.
Yeah, that's why it was made in the first place.
Yep, I would say so. I'm also not able to remember everything in Markdown, so I'm just going to look up Markdown syntax guide.
No, it's not all good.
I don't use it every day. Oh yeah, so let's say we want to talk about Sammy's shopping list. On Sammy's shopping list, he's got, if we add a dash, we can add some dot points. Sammy wants shoes.
Yeah, stuff. Yeah, that covers about everything else.
Things.
Dad jokes. I don't know. Dad things.
Dad
Yeah.
jokes.
All right. Yeah. I'm sure whenever I go to the shop, my list is not that long. So let's move on from that. Oh yeah.
Steak.
Right. You need to make the list.
Rubber steak. So we can also do numbered lists. So using, let's just copy and paste some of this. If we replace all of these dashes with, let's say, number 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, and so on, you could make different numbered lists. You can also make tables. So let's say I want this to be like a customer ID, name, address, and I complete the header part of the table by adding these equal signs under these cells. Wait, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, you might have to break it again.
Surely I must be doing something wrong. Ah, it's not equal signs, it's dashes. There better be dashes. Oh, there we go. Yep, so once you make up the header with all of your column names, you don't even have to bother lining everything up. Git or Markdown will just do that for you. So Sammy's address is workplace, and the steak's address
Juicy?
is
what?
the moon. Yep, juicy. I like that one. Yep, we can also write code in the middle of our own document. So if I just write some Python here, hi, my name is if you're on Windows, this will pretty much get you the username of the user who's currently logged in. And if you're on Linux or something, you would have to change this to user, because username doesn't exist as an environment variable. And by environment variable, I'm actually talking about environment variables that are created in your operating system. So if I type out set, I can see that the current logged in user for me is find SDR username. Oh, is it user? What is going on? It is username, and there we go. I am Nath.
Probably case sensitive there.
Yep, probably case sensitive. Yep, so that's all that does. For anyone who really has no idea what this means either, print is just a function in Python that allows you to display text on the terminal or the console, or the command prompt, depending on which operating system you're using. Text that is enclosed with double quotes or single quotes is called a string. This pretty much just means a block of text. And this F is a way of formatting that. So with these curly braces, I can put code within the string to say, oh, I want you to grab this piece of code out of this other file to, go and grab some environment variable within the system to return this username that I want to display on the screen, and it'll do that. When I say import OS, this is grabbing code that another developer has put together in what's called a library. So if you were to think about, to a certain point, this might show my age and maybe not. I don't think I'm that old, but early on in school, I remember going to a public library. The internet was sort of new at the time, and to do your research or whatever, you would have to go to a book that you want to get out of the library, and you would use something from that book to use in your research, and you would do that by referencing it. This concept is kind of the same in Python, because OS is what we call a library. It's been put together by another developer, and by referencing pieces of code, or you could call them labels, within a library, you can get it to run smaller pieces of code that perform a certain function, like grab usernames, or the current username of the user who's currently logged into the system, or something like that, without having to know what the internals of that code block that you're running does, or what it even looks like. I don't know if that made any sense at all.
It does, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, because I knew that sort of libraries are sort of external pieces of code pre-written by someone.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between a library, like the sort of concept of libraries and dictionaries? So in a library, you can have, for example, L1 making or like lib1 equals opening square brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 close square brackets. What's the difference between a library that, for example, OS library, or the library that I just said that, yeah.
So your question was like, so what's the difference between a library and a dictionary? Was that it?
No. So because so the thing that you import is called a library. So it's like pre-written sort of code, right, for something.
Yep.
But also, when you go through like Python learning and everything, they tell you like, what a library is so they give it an example that I don't know, L1, for example, L stands for library. L1 equals in square brackets, you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you can do whatever with that library. So I don't know, find a number from that. Or
Alex, I think you're referring to a variable. That's fine. There's, Alex, that's fine. There's a lot of content on the platform that's going to help you clarify this. So just think of library as code that someone else has written, or it might actually be yourself that's written it, but you just want to reference it. That's why you're using the import statement to actually go and grab that particular code. So just think of it as code that's been written somewhere else, which may or may not include variables or functions, but quite often it usually includes variables and functions and classes. But it's just basically reusing code so you don't have to waste time trying to write it from scratch again.
Oh, maybe that's where my question comes from. So what's the difference between the library, like, for example, the OS library, or the library with variables, like just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I don't know, Alex, Paul, Nathan, Sammy.
So the main difference.
Okay. So let's say I make a variable, and I call it container, because a variable is pretty much It's pretty much a container, or it's like a label that you can reference all throughout the code that stores, some information. And when when your script sees that, it'll replace that label with the actual value that's stored in that container. So what you were explaining before with L1, it sounded like it was something along the lines of like someone putting together some square brackets. So this is what we call a list in Python, and then they add some numbers to it.
I'm so dumb. Libraries and lists.
It's all good. Alex, you're not dumb. This is
Okay.
That's why we're here, right? To learn.
That the L, like, it's the same thing as in my in names. They say, how can you mix up Alexander and Alexei, which are different names? Both of them have the first Alex, but that's the only similar thing they have. A list. List and libraries.
I figure that's what we asked, which
so
was why I
sorry.
said don't worry about it. You learn that on the platform, obviously.
You're okay, mate. It's an easy mistake to make.
Oh.
All right. By the way, guys,